Welcome to Freedom Motivated with Christina Whiteley, the podcast that empowers you to live life on your terms. Are you uninspired, bored, and unhappy with where life has taken you? And yearning for a life filled with purpose and passion? Look no further. We are here to ignite that fire within, to awaken your true potential, and to guide you on a journey towards absolute freedom. Join us as we delve into the minds of incredible entrepreneurs and freedom leaders from very different backgrounds with incredible stories. Be inspired by their resilience and learn from their challenges they faced along the path to success. These are the brave individuals who fight every day to awaken people to the power of self-responsibility and who inspire them to create a life they are absolutely in love with. Each episode will explore the concept of conscious income creation, building a business or creating a career that aligns with your unique skill set, purpose, values, and belief system. Discover the strategies, tips, and invaluable insights shared by our guests as they guide you towards making a living doing what you love. It's time to break free from the shackles of conformity and embrace the freedom that awaits. Are you ready to take control of your life? Are you ready to step into the life you've always dreamed of? Then welcome to Freedom Motivated, the podcast that will ignite your spirit and unleash your potential. All right. We are now, I think we're live. Yes, we're live. Okay, we're live. I usually record podcasts behind the scenes and then launch them, but I wanted this conversation to be public to my community because I think it's so valuable. I found Coach JV a few years ago, and even over the last year, I feel like you have really become a voice for those that are struggling, a voice for those that are confused, a really strong leadership role in this financial industry. And the background that you have, I'm going to let you share with people because I think that it really it validates the fear that people have and maybe that underlying anxiety because there's no understanding of what's to come next or everything is kind of up in the air. There's all this uncertainty, right? But what I really love the most about you is that you've tied your spirituality and your foundation of who you are, your values and your belief systems to what you share with the world. And right now we are in a very interesting time. We're in a very interesting time financially because we've never had access to the technology that we have, right? Everything has always gone back to the gold standard every time there's a reinvention of currencies. And by the way, for those of you that maybe don't know the history of money and history in general, there's been multiple currencies that have collapsed over the years, right? There's been multiple times where countries that are leading in the world have actually have to given up power, and there's been war, and there's all this distraction, things that are going on. And I talk about distraction a lot, and so do you, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the media that seems triggering to people. Like right now, what are they talking about? The Epstein list, right? A lot of things that are triggering to people, and they're like, oh my God, and they follow this and they follow that. And it was a couple of years ago that I woke up to, it's all a distraction. There's always things that are going on behind the scene and all the stuff that you see, they want you to see, but what's going on behind the scenes and how people behave is differently. So Coach JV, first of all, thank you so much for being here today. If you do not follow him on social media, if you do not subscribe to his Instagram page, if you do not follow him on TikTok, please go and follow him and start to educate yourself. Some of this stuff might go over your head. Some of it you might get bits and pieces of, but let me tell you, the more you educate yourself, the more you ground yourself and make less emotional decisions when other people are panicking, the better. And when you surround yourself with like-minded people who truly care about lifting the energy in this world and in evolution and consciousness arising, and really grounding that in spirituality, in their faith, and in who you are and who you're here to be, everything shifts. And so without further ado, I would love to ask you to share a little bit of your story. Where did you come from? And you know, why is this so important to you to educate people on when it comes to financial literacy and how our financial system is completely changing and getting an overhaul moving into the next few years?
Awesome. Well, thank you. First of all, say what you believe in your heart, you think in your mind, will become your words and become your reality. If you can see it in your mind, eventually you can hold it right here in your hands. This is really important. What you repeatedly do or think will end up becoming your unconscious activity. So you brought up distractions, right? So I'm Coach JB. So I'm the CEO of the 3T Warrior Academy. So I would consider myself like a venture capitalist with equity in multiple companies. I consider myself the richest man in the world, not because of finances, because of my relationship with God. And that's been a journey to get there through unwiring deep rooted indoctrination. So I'll go all the way back to, I think it's important to give context of where I was and where I'm at now and why I am who I am and why I so boldly speak my faith about God and the financial system, because I have zero fear. And you know, you brought up the word anxiety or stress and things like that. What I want to share with everybody, if anybody gets the first part of this video, we win in the end. Just remember that. I'm telling you from my heart, I'm starting crying. Like, we win in the end. I'm just going to share that. And through this conversation, hopefully I can give you context of why I believe that, because it's practical application. So on December 18, 2006, I committed suicide due to a massive opiate addiction 17 years ago. And I woke up to a book called The Secret. So my mom actually called me. It woke me up from a self-induced coma. Pretty much, I was on the floor of my business, and she said, "I'm not sure what the F is going on with you. You need to read a book called The Secret." And I did. And my life was completely different from that moment on. I was living for the world. It was an external focus, waiting for this, waiting for that, edification, and all these things. So I read a book called The Secret, and it was Thoughts Become Things, very simplistically. So I had nothing at that point. I'd lost everything. I committed suicide. I lost my business. I pretty much had nothing else but to believe in this thing, thoughts become things. And so I started to do affirmations. That was my first step into this journey. So I am powerful. I am strong. I am worthy. And I started to look in the mirror, and I actually I started to believe this stuff. And then all of a sudden, I went from losing everything, not even being able to take care of my 3-year-old daughter, to getting a job offer. And so somebody called me one day, a guy that pretty much saved my life. He said, "Hey, I got a job for you, JV." And this will go into the banking story and how I learned all this. So he said, "JV, they call me John back then. I call myself CJV, but he said, "I got a job offer for you." And I said, "What?" He said, "You want to work at a bank?" I'm like, "A bank?" Like, I have dyslexia and I have really, really bad math skills. So I was like, "A bank?" I said, "Well, I will clean the floor. At this point, I just need a job." And so I go buy a suit at Goodwill for 50 cents. I got a 50-cent suit. That's about all I had left. Went into the bank. I've sat with a girl, and this is key for everybody to write down. I get done with the interview and I walk out of the interview. I'm like, "There's no way I got this job." I went in there, smiling, high energy, thoughts become things. I'm a banker, all this stuff in my mind. Well, I'm driving away. I'm about 10 minutes away from the bank. She calls me and she says, "Hey, John," she says, "we're going to hire you." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "We liked your energy. Write that down. We liked your energy." And I was like, "I'm going to be a banker?" She's like, "Yeah, we can train you. You can't train your energy. You can't train your authenticity." And I'm like, "Okay." So I call my mom and I'm like, "Mom, I got a job as a banker." She's like, "You can't do math." And that was it was the funniest moment. My mom's my best friend. I was like, "Okay." So that started the journey of becoming a banker. And so what I immediately found, and this is really important to the story, is I went in 2007 during the collapse of the last financial collapse that we had. That literally, when the BRICS got formed, this is really important. Everybody needs to write down BRICS: Brazil, India, Russia, China, and South Africa, and write down Bitcoin. So in 2009, the BRICS companies got created, or sorry, the BRICS countries came together: Brazil, India, Russia, China, and South Africa. Well, I believe, based on the belief system for my current paradigm that I was living, I was literally seeing what that financial system did. They literally were giving loans to people with no income stated. There was people walking in that had, and I'm a brand new banker. I'm literally taking care of people that are losing their homes. They can't pay their bills. Their 7-year arms, their 3-year arms, all these interest only mortgages came due. These people some people didn't have income. And I'm like, "How did you get a loan?" And they're like, "They just approved it." And so in that moment, I thought for a moment, I'm like, I work for a banking institution. Who allowed this to happen? So that started to get into my head. That was an early kind of like a shift to being like, there's something wrong with the system. Now, mind you, I was grateful to have a job. I was grateful to be a banker. I was grateful to feed my family. So I go into this whole ecosystem and I got to go through that experience. Back then, I didn't understand BRICS and all that stuff, but I just started to really dive deep into understanding the banking system. And so through manifestation, through positive thinking, affirmations, I moved up super fast and I became a VP quicker than anybody ever became a VP. Again, they offered me the VP spot and they said, "We like your energy." And so here I am, a VP now at a bank, and they send me to CBA Executive Banking School. Now I know it's all divinely directed by God why I went through this. So I go to it's a high-level executive banking school. You can look up John Vasquez. I think I graduated in 2017. I'm in I look completely different, so good luck finding me. You'll be able to see through the face. I don't have facial hair. But I graduated CBA Executive Banking School, and that teaches you how to scale banks from the ground up. Well, due to my dyslexia and my lack of math skills, I brought on a tutor and I was really paying attention. Remember, you always pay for what you're paying attention to. That's key. Write that down. You pay for your attention. So I really paid attention. And I started to understand how banks actually work. So what I understood conceptually, because in banking school, you have to, for 3 years, you have to start at the bottom, build a bank, put it into a simulation model, make it profitable. So I realized that what I needed for my customers, I needed their deposits and I needed all their relationships. And I noticed that as I took their money and I put it out into the capital markets and I put it in insurance and I put all these different things, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm taking Mrs. Jones' money and I'm making a shitload of money off Mrs. Jones' money. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. And I was like, so we're a financial education company, but we're not educating our customers.
Clients.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we considered ourselves that. We did, these forms that we'd fill out and stuff, but we were just selling products to them. We weren't educating people on how to become financially wealthy. Now, the system back then, there was free money being printed. Everybody was making money. The stock market was doing great. So I didn't know there was anything wrong with the financial system. I didn't understand that. Well, I asked a professor one day and I said, listen, I have a question for you. I said, this doesn't seem right to me. Okay, I'm building the sim. Like they put their money in here. It's fractional reserves, and I can lend Mrs. Jones money out, and the next bank can lend it out, and they can keep lending it out like 9 times over. This doesn't seem right. This is what he said to me. He said, this changed my whole life. So important. He said, that's the way it's always been. And I said, just because that's the way it's always been does not mean it's right.
Yeah.
Then I got a recommendation to read the book Creature of Jekyll Island. That Boom. If you haven't read that book, that's a good book for everybody to read because it'll allow you to see what our Fed Reserve actually is. Now, again, I want to make it very clear. There is no invisible enemy that I'm fighting. I hopefully by the time of this conversation, I'll help everybody take a deep breath because nobody's stopping us from being powerful. Nobody's stopping us from being wealthy. Nobody's stopping us from being healthy. It's all inside of us. So as I tell you these stories and you read these books and you go down the rabbit holes, know this is to empower you, not to disempower you, because
Thank you.
information is only information unless it's enacted upon. So there's a lot of resources. One is Creature of Jekyll Island, which will allow you to understand what the Federal Reserve is. So the Federal Reserve is a group of bankers, right, that was created on Jekyll Island. And it's not part of our government structure. They're a separate arm of the government. They were tapped by BlackRock in the financial collapse of 2006 to 2007 to balance out our markets, the largest asset manager in the world. They were tapped again in 2020 to balance out our markets because of the pandemic. So you have to think for just a moment. You have the largest asset manager in the world that has 10 trillion under management, most than most global GDPs, is being tapped by our Federal Reserve to balance out our markets. Okay. So we know the system is rigged somehow, right? But is it? But is it? Okay. So that's the thing. So that this journey took me through 2017. I actually graduated banking school. And then I decided to leave banking. I was like, so it was one of those things where think about it, it's a Cinderella story. I go from suicide to a VP at a bank, big home on a 15,000 square foot lot, golf course, the SUV, the 535i BMW, but something felt wrong.
Yeah.
Something didn't feel right. My stomach wasn't working properly. My digestion wasn't working properly. I was bloated all the time. I was still exercising. And then I started to tap into my ethereal body, like understanding my body and how the ethereal system works, your spinal cord, your nervous system, like how the body is fully connected. So I leave corporate America in 2017. I go on this journey to become an entrepreneur. I thought I was going to be a famous podcast host and book author. Launched my book. Nobody bought it. I bought it. I podcast. Nobody was listening. I launched my first program in January 2018, and I'll never forget. I worked 6 months on it. When I was in corporate America to when I started this program. I was so excited. My family was crowded around. We launched our first online program, and guess how many people signed up? 0. So there was a thing that happened through that process, and this goes back into thoughts become things. This is really important for everybody watching this because you will never outwork your thoughts, ever, ever, ever. And we'll break a lot of this down as I finish the story. So in 2018, I was starting to get a little bit frustrated, but I had a bunch of money in my bank account. I cashed out my 401k, I had all this money to go on this journey. Well, the money was starting to run out really quick. We're trying to build a company. All of a sudden, the bank account's getting empty. It's kind of like Moses takes them through the Red Sea, right? And all of a sudden, they go out into the desert, they're free. And then all of a sudden, you start to lose faith, right? And you start to lose faith. The bank account's getting empty. Nobody's signing up for my programs. Nobody's watching my podcast. But if you follow my social, I was still posting just like I do now 17 times a day. I never stopped. I kept pushing. I stayed focused. I kept doing my affirmations. I am powerful. I am strong. I am worthy. I'm so happy and grateful for the money that comes to me in increasing quantities from multiple sources on a continued basis. God rest Bob Proctor's soul. I say that every single day, 1,000 times a day. I just repeat it in my head. But I believed that something was going to change, right? So then I did a video, and I think it's on my YouTube channel. Early in my YouTube channel, I said, I want to be a warrior in a modern day society. And I was running a fitness and mindset company back then. Be careful what you ask for. What God, so God said, okay, fine, we're going to strip everything from you. Everything. So I lost my money twice in the process. And the last straw was 2020. Finally, we had a successful six-figure business doing very well. Money's finally flooding in, and then the pandemic comes and they shut our business down. Our gym was a academy. It has a gym portion to it, our education academy, and so they shut us down. They actually shut our business down, and they would not let me go to my company. They were actually had curfew, and I'm like, okay, like so. And I'll be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you. I was like, I started to lose faith for just a moment. I was like, this is crazy. Like this does not make sense. So I remember I went to the gym. We had to let our last team member go, and I walked outside the gym and I called my CFO. His name is Jeremy. He's one of my best friends. He's been with me since the beginning. He believed in me. And I'm going to say a bad word. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So basically, I was like, but this is the story. And I walked outside and I said, we had to let the team member go. And I got on the phone. I said, I'm fucking done, dude. I'm done. This is ridiculous. I'm now broke. I moved back in with my parents. I'll be very transparent with you guys. I moved back in with my parents' couch. I had lost everything. My daughter's teenage life got uprooted in high school. My son and daughter and I are piled in my parents' 1,000 square foot home. And my CFO, he just paused for a moment. This guy's a very devout Buddhist. He doesn't really cuss or anything. He goes, JV, you're a fucking legend. Get back in there. And I was like, I mean, it shook me to the core. It wasn't him speaking. That was spirit speaking through
That
him.
was divine.
And so I literally hung up the phone. I put the key in the door and I turned it and I said, God, I believe in you. I really do. And if you are real, when I turn this key, I am never turning back. Turned the key, went back into the facility. So what I did was I stopped chasing an invisible enemy. I stopped waiting for Trump to come back. I stopped waiting for a savior. And I started really studying spirituality and understanding what Jesus was truly teaching. Jesus taught me that we're already saved. There's so many symbols in the Bible that tell us, and I started to do a spiritual walk with my finances, a spiritual walk with my ecosystem. I stopped trusting in the dollar that says in God we trust, that's actually in man we trust, and I started trusting in God. So I started operating what I call faith. And so from that point on, 2020, my daughter, she introduced us to TikTok, and we did a couple viral videos, and it was God's direction. We went completely viral. And so now worldwide, we have 2.1 million followers. We just finished up a documentary that we filmed about the life of what happened. And then there's just a lot of things happening. We have equity in 9 companies. We have 2 7-figure ecosystems. We have an insurance company now. And so the story is not to brag. The story is to say it's possible for all of you. So that's my story. That's how I got here. And so I'll pause for just a moment, but there's so much context to that in depth. And I just hope that people are still watching this. If I can do it, you can. I mean, I am like, if I can do it, from suicide, opiate addiction, suicide, to executive, to losing everything twice, to parents' couch, to financially free. I don't have any worries with finances anymore. And I have an ecosystem of 27 team members who are all becoming financially free now. And I'm the freest man in the world. I mean, just in Cabo just recently. And, so it's possible. So I'll stop there.
Well, first of all, that's a lot to unpack, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing the ups and the downs. People see the success, and really, people don't care about success. They care about the challenges that you overcame to get there. And what I love the most is that, like, it doesn't ever stop. You continue to go through these challenges. Anybody that is willing to risk will be rewarded. And it's really challenging when you go through situations that are sometimes out of your hands, right? Like you said, you couldn't even get into to the gym. I remember my husband losing access to his entire community at the gym. And like, it's not something that is insignificant. It is something that is like very challenging when you lose access to the people that are important to you, and the business that's important to you. But what I see from you is that you are constantly reinventing yourself. You were constantly looking for new solutions. You were constantly up leveling your level of belief, and you were aware of that. And the faith that you had, the unshakable faith. I've gone through my own spiritual journey over the last many years. I was raised Catholic and was church hurt for many years, and said I'm going to go into the spiritual realm, and came back to God in the last few years, because I realized it is out of our hands, but it's that unshakable faith that people have when they understand that God is in control, that changes the outcome of everything. And you can align. And here's the other thing that I love is that you align the spiritual aspect of it, the secret, with your faith in God. And so many people have a hard time doing that. And now we're talking about finances, and people are like, well, how does that align with spirituality? And you know what's really interesting is that I've been through that process with financial planners that really didn't plan well for us. They were planning well for them, right? You go through these little quizzes and this is what your education is for them, right? But you're actually not serving that human, realizing that if you are going to create wealth in your life, you need to have multiple streams of income, that you need to find a solution to the market right now, that you need to continue growing and building and helping the people around you, that it is acts of service that gets you there, not the selfishness that comes of just making money, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And I remember when I first started making money, I'm a raised by blue collar parents who had a great job, who paid all their bills, who paid their house off. But now I watched, this whole story that we've been told, get an education, get a well-paying job with a pension and healthcare. That is not the story that is going to create wealth anymore. That is not what is going to happen. I watch them now living on a fixed income and worrying about their financial future because they don't know if they have enough to
Yeah.
carry them through their retirement.
The
And
average
so,
the average
go ahead.
American retires with $300,000 a year. And Fidelity, the number one 401k manager, there's only 294,000 millionaire accounts. Like in $1 million at 4% at retirement is about $40,000 in income. That you can't survive off that.
No.
It's really about getting intense about waking up around, not only, like you said, the way that you brought up a really good conversation, because my parents did it right. They paid off their home, they did all those things, but they retired just to survive. There's no, that we don't retire to survive, to downsize, we retire to thrive. That's what we're supposed to do, right? And it goes deep rooted into the nation. The American dream is dead. I know you're in from Canada, but the old system that our grandparents and parents went through, it's dead. And I can break that down at a deep level on what has happened and how dangerous it is with America being the powerhouse economy, obviously the lead economy. America's in a really tough position, guys, and we have to prepare ourselves for that as if, not fear, but as if something is going to happen, right? And you talked about diversification, which is extremely, extremely important. But yeah, so like the financial system, like think about the American indoctrination system. I just did a interview on this. It was like in the 1900s. So number one, they changed our medical system to treat symptoms, not problems, right?
Yep.
So this is biblical. Jesus talks a lot about the left and the right. Jesus was on the right when he was crucified, right? He told them to cast the net on the right. Moses went up into the right. There's a big part about that spiritually has helped me financially to understand the right hemisphere of the brain is creation, it's manifestation, it's abundance. It brings things into 3D form. Left hemisphere of the brain is 10% of the brain, which is logic, facts, figures, numbers, logic, which 99% of the people I talk to are living in the left hemisphere of fear. Oh my God, what's going to happen with the presidential election? Okay, guys, okay, say Trump is coming back or isn't coming back. That doesn't change the fact that you didn't exercise today. It doesn't change the fact that you didn't save money today. It doesn't change the fact that you didn't treat your spouse properly today. It doesn't change the fact that what you did in darkness is going to come to light. Trump doesn't change any of that. Biden doesn't change any of that. But I realize, and that's what they have us trapped in, waiting for
Yep.
a savior. When Jesus came to say, you're already saved, he's like, do you want to be saved? I can break down so many stories biblically because my wealth comes from biblical principles, 100%. Because the man before the spiritual journey, people ask me, what's the difference? Jesus Christ. That's the difference for me. 100% the difference for me. The man before was chasing money, was always grinding, was teaching people to work 19 hours a day and sleep 4 hours a night, which is completely incorrect. And the man I am today is financially free, spiritually free, and also helping other people become financially free. I work till 2 o'clock every day and I'm done.
Yep.
Every day and I'm done. I don't work weekends. I travel around the world. I raise my son. My daughter's 19. She's my roommate basically. But my son, I raise my son. TikTok doesn't raise my son. Biden doesn't raise my son. Trump's not going to raise my son. So
Amen.
it's really important for people to take a deep breath. We're going to be okay. But we have to understand that 2024 is the most critical transformation in like religious people call it the rapture, spiritual people call it the Great Awakening, whatever you call it, the World Economic Forum calls it the Great Reset. Everybody knows at a higher level, a conscious level, that something is shifting. It's part of consciousness, right? We're completely out of balance, divine feminine, divine masculine. And
Yes.
that goes into money as well, too. When people, you have to build a positive relationship with money. Our parents and our grandparents didn't have that. You said, my parents saved money in a safe. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you're literally saving paper. It's junk. Like, so I bought my dad silver for a birthday present. He's like, what's this? And I'm like, that's a store of value. Like, this has value to it, pops. Like, that's $4,000 in silver. Will always be $4,000. I said the $4,000 in cash, that literally, it's just paper. And he's like, well, no,
Paper.
it's how I buy stuff. I'm like, you can buy stuff with silver if you need to eventually. I was just trying to rewire, but I'm like, sometimes you can't you can't what you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? And what a lot of people don't do is they don't move into their new spiritual walk or their financial walk because their parents and their grandparents judge them for it, right? You know
Yeah,
how much I've been judged for this walk that I'm like, especially my talk with God and Jesus and
sure.
mixing finances and spirituality and meditation. People are like, "Hey, you can't do that." I'm like, only thing I'm doing is sharing what I'm practically applying in my life. And so this is important for your listeners too. So when somebody tells me, I'll give you an example. So I put my prayer on Twitter every single morning. Okay. And the reason why I do that is because Twitter archives all your tweets. I don't know if people know that. So basically when I die, my grandkids can pull up all the archives and they can see exactly where I was in that present moment based on my prayers. So when I'm praying as if my grandkids' kids are going to pull it up to see where I was at to the history. Well, the verse that people put out, you need to pray in your closet, but a lot of people don't understand. I say understand, is that what it means to pray in your closet. It doesn't mean you can't pray on Twitter. Why wouldn't you want to put something positive on there? It doesn't mean that you can't pray on the streets, right? It means when you pray in your closet, what happens is Jesus called it the singular eye, right? The singular eye. People call it the all-seeing eye. You have something right here called the pineal gland. It's in your brain. It's scientific. The pineal gland is activated in darkness. So the pineal gland, Jacob, biblical, okay, so people want it, biblical, Jacob said, I saw God face to face, and I called it pineal. He goes and lays on a rock, he closes his eyes, he sees the ladder, and I can go deep into that stuff too. But the point of this is when you close your eyes, what you believe and you think you can't outsmart it. When you open your eyes, the pineal gland shuts down. The physical reality that you're experiencing is what you manifested, what God allowed you to create and gave you free will. So it's really important when it comes to money because people are getting into cryptocurrency like, oh, it's gonna be my retirement. I'm gonna get rich. It's not gonna save you. If you have bad habits and
Yeah.
you at $10,000 a year and you make 1 million, you're gonna be broke at $1 million.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we teach deeply is financial education because I had to rewire this. That's why I went broke for the third time. First was drug induced. Second, two were self-induced by starting a business, but I didn't, nobody taught me finances. Nobody
Yeah.
taught me how the system worked. Nobody taught me what currency is. So you brought up an important point that we should dive into is diversification because it's really important. The 401k is not going to get you to wealth. There's a reason why the Roth IRA, you can only put in 250,000. It's not designed for you to be wealthy.
No, that's, and so I do want to go into this conversation because I think that so often we, money talks a lot of the time make people feel uncomfortable. And a lot of the time they don't want to like face their finances. They don't want to look at what's actually going on. They don't want to change their habits. They just kind of want to bury it. And you said something also really important and this aligns with this a life-changing sentence that came for me was that you can't save people. All you can do is save yourself and show them how you did it. Right? You can't go out there and be a savior and have this hero complex. You just have to keep showing up and help people where they're at. And it's funny because you talked about the American dream. I saw a meme the other day that says the American dream is selling everything and moving to Mexico.
Yeah, that's so true.
Right?
So
Because we're
yeah.
set up in a system that is failing us and a system that is created to fail us. Like you said, these 401ks, we have RRSPs and RESPs and all those kind of savings, tax-free savings, whatever that is, but it's limited. You're not allowed to do it. And by the way, in the beginning, we thought, okay, well, like, let's put together some money for our daughter. Let's do that. That investment did nothing over 7 years. We ended up losing money on that, but it
Yeah.
was what we were taught. And so we have to unschool ourselves to the education system and start taking absolute responsibility for our finances and our financial well-being and our financial literacy and be able to educate ourselves and surround ourselves with people like you that have different opinions and are teaching people how to use crypto, not just to bank on it for being the savior, because you're right, there is no savior. You have to save
Yeah.
yourself. And so let's talk a little bit about multiple streams of income and diversifying right now. I know that you've read both Ray Dalio's books, which I absolutely loved. They were so good. And if anybody picked up, the book that you suggested in the beginning and those books and just got a little bit of an education behind them, instead of having fear right now of what comes next, you start to understand what's happening and you can start making decisions based on facts, not based on your emotion, in a situation that is really just triggering for most people.
Yes, and money we've always been taught by you don't talk about money. I talk about how
That's
much money
right.
all the time. I went from broke on my parents' couch to a millionaire. I have multiple million-dollar ecosystems. I consider a large crypto portfolio that could be multi-millions in the next 6 months. So it's important. Like when I say, "Oh my gosh," like it's what makes me. Every people can take all that from me. Again, makes me the richest man in the world is my relationship with God. That if that is there, I'll always be rich. That's one thing I'm really driving in. People are thinking like a religion. I'm talking a relationship. And
Yes,
that's really knowing that it's
it's
going to be okay.
different.
So let's talk about diversification. So the basically the way that I'm set up is I'm in cryptocurrency and I'm diverse across different things like payment tokens, uh, exchange tokens, gaming tokens, infrastructure. So some examples. A payment token would be like XRP, XLM. You have infrastructure, which is like HBAR, Ethereum, you have QNT, and then you have Bitcoin, which is a store of value, right? So those are just some simple ones. VeChain, which is supply chain management. So what we did is there's a book called Intelligence. So let me give you the book. So the Creature of Jekyll Island, sorry. Ray Dalio's Changing World Order, The Big Debt Crisis. That one's kind of hard to conceptually understand, but it's important to just keep
Yeah,
reading. Like I'm a banker, so I get it. Um, uh, Think and Grow Rich. If you have not read that one, very
I
important.
love that book.
Yeah. These are Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is cash flow quadrant. That's what me and you were probably operating on the right side of the cash flow quadrant. And then a very boring book that is The Richest Man in Babylon. So the concept,
Oh, good.
when I read that book, it's biblical. I was like, okay, crypto, because I got out of the pandemic and then I was in crypto and I had already been in crypto, but I was like, okay, now it's going well. But I met Wise Counsel and I started to study multimillionaires and billionaires. And I met this multimillionaire and I was like, oh, dude, he was like, so how's your portfolio? I said, oh, it's awesome. I'm going to get rich when crypto booms and blah, blah. He's like, did you just say you're going to get rich when crypto booms? And I said, yeah. He goes, dude, he's like, you don't mix your investments with your retirement. I said, can you explain that? He goes, I'm not trying to offend you, but right now there's no regulation. It's extremely volatile. If that's your
Yeah.
retirement plan, good luck, brother. He said, you need to diversify. So the first discovery I discovered was Tier One Capital, which is insurance, which is
Yeah.
tax code 7702. So I'm a licensed insurance agent. I started my own insurance company because I'd been using it for 3 years. So what Tier One Capital is, if insurance collapses, look for a zombie apocalypse. That's where the banks put their money in. BOLI, bank-owned life
Yeah.
insurance. We put our money into Index Universal Life. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. It's very important though that the agent sets it up properly because a lot of agents maximize the death benefit, which is for their commission. It's all about the living benefit. So
Thank you
watch.
for saying that, by the
It's
way.
important because that's where the bad juju comes from, that or bad energy, because that's why I got licensed after 3 years, because like I'm done hearing this. I'm going to get licensed and I'm going to figure out how to set these up properly. So I have licensed insurance agents in all 50 states, Canada. And so we set it up because we have a lot of people that are making money in crypto. So what we do is when crypto goes up, as everybody's coming in, I'm pulling profits. So I pull profits as people are coming in. It's called an exit strategy, because what happens is when this stuff goes parabolic, it's very exciting. And if you never had a lot of money like that, you feel like you're going to keep making money. So what happens? Let's bring it to a practical sense. So you go to Vegas, right? And you put down $1,000 on black, and all of a sudden you win $2,000. What happens? Your dopamine kicks in. The house knows that you're going to go. They're like, I can do that again. No, you're not. You're not going to win that again. You take your 1,000, you pull it, and you play on the house money. So your
That's right.
first thing you should do in crypto is pull your house money or pull your money and play on house money. So I'm playing on house money, and then I dollar cost average every single week. And then when there's a big dip today, I buy in when there's big dips. So when it goes up, I'm exiting. So when I exit, make sure you pay Uncle Sam wherever your jurisdiction is in America. We need to pay Uncle Sam. So I pay my Uncle Sam taxes, but I'd rather pay taxes, capital gains. Short term is under a year, long term is after a year. And there's different, just look at your tax brackets. So when I pull, I max fund my Index Universal Life policies, but this goes into multiple streams of income. The reason why I do that is because I can access my policy tax free. So I can access the cash value if it's set up properly, very important. I can access the cash value of my my life insurance to buy other assets. You always
You
want to make.
become your own bank, basically.
Correct. Yep. So basically the way that mine is set up, I have a leverage policy, which I leverage for other assets. I have a legacy policy, which is attached to my Rockefeller Trust, and then I have a retirement policy, right? So three different reasons for my policies. So the leverage policy would be, now I'm getting deep into real estate. I got into real estate a little bit last year. Now I need to because tax liabilities. So this quarter I'll buy a property. I will most likely go to my own bank, borrow from my policy to do the down payment for the property, use the bank's money. So use my bank's money and the bank's money, and then the renter will pay back my loan, right? So we have to start thinking about, well, let me go through the ecosystem. So we have life insurance, precious metals. I have silver now. I'm getting into gold because of the economy. I don't trust it. I'm going to be buying more gold.
Yeah.
Businesses is the quickest way to wealth. So we found that if you can solve a problem for humanity, just takes time, but it is a lot faster now with TikTok and social media. It's a lot faster.
Yeah.
Um, if you have the right people, the right infrastructure. So we've expanded pretty heavily in business. Business is the quickest way to wealth. I mean, we increase our earned income every single quarter.
That's what I teach.
Yeah, it's huge. It's the quickest way to wealth. And if you're not an entrepreneurial type spirit, you can find somebody who is. You can be an equity owner. There's a lot of different ways. Everybody thinks, well, I have to be the face of the company, right? So I'm the face of this company and two other companies, but the rest of them I'm just an equity owner. And so I put money into it and I earn dividends off of those companies. So those are ways that you can make money. And I'm glad that you teach that. But the key though is when you start to make more income, this is how gets us out of this indoctrination, especially our generation, right? Our parents were great savers. What happens with us is when we start to make more money, we buy more stuff. This is a key factor. Everybody should write this down. Do not buy more stuff until your assets can pay for the stuff. I'll give you an example, okay? So I made a mistake when I first started making some wealth from 2021, going into 2021, and my wealth just went from nothing to shot through the roof. And all of a sudden, I was like, I justified it by saying I was going to turn a car into an asset. I was like, oh, I'm going to buy this fast track Corvette and I'm going to put it on Turo and I'm going to do all this stuff. But I was actually the broken little boy was still trying to get edification from the world to be like, look at me, I got off my parents' couch. So I buy the Corvette, I drive it for 2 days. I'm like, there's no damn well I'm putting this on Turo. I'm like, I'm driving this. So now I have a $1,200 car payment for this track car that I can only drive on the weekends. I have two kids. It doesn't make any sense. And I get to drive it once on the weekends. And $1,200 a month is going towards this hunk of junk when I could be putting $1,200 for 12 months into the capital market. 10 months, that's $12,000. $12,000 in the crypto market could 100 times. So
Yeah.
think about that mistake that I made. So I sold that quickly, bought a property, but my point behind it is now I have guardrails in place. So I love supercars, right? You can be spiritual and drive a supercar, just so you know. So I love supercars. I love cars. I just don't show my lifestyle. But to buy a supercar, I have to be at a certain net worth or an asset has to pay for the supercar. That was the lesson I learned
Yeah.
for that. So you can do that at a small level. So what we teach as well is like basically if a family, multi-family house with multi-incomes, we say, hey, listen, how many cars do you have? We have two cars. Is there any way you can go down to one car? Well, yeah, I'm working from home. Then why do you have two cars? Well, you don't need it, you want it. Then it's usually the guy who has to get rid of his lifted truck with big rims on it and big shock. Well, I got my boat. How often do you use your boat? I use my boat once a month, but it's nothing. Your priorities are messed up. You have
Yeah.
$2,400 in boat and truck payments. You only get to buy those again when your property is paying for that. And so it's shifting our mindset because of
Yeah.
the American dream was a trap. It trapped us in it. And entrepreneurship it can be a trap too, because when you start making money, we want to prove to people. The first thing we want to do is prove to people that we're making money, but nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody
No.
cares. That's why I'm like, whatever, dude. People, you always kind of, it's better to look like the fool, right? People, when they look at me, I go to, big meetings with money. I show up and they're like, who is this dude? I'm like, do you want to do business or not? Like, wealth is, we're changing the face of wealth. I used to wear a suit and I made $250,000 a year. I was making huge bonuses as a banker and I was broke.
Yeah.
I had a truck, an SUV, big ass house, and I was broke. And now I have hardly anything, and I have the greatest relationships, financial freedom, travel around the world, do all kinds of cool stuff, and I get to dress however I want. And I think so. What I'm trying to say is that money is an energy, it's a vibration, and we have to get because very few people get to that point where their assets pay for their liabilities. So diversifying is very, very important. If you are in a 401k, don't freak out. People like, I don't want to freak people out about a 401k. It's just not a good retirement plan. It's not.
Don't bank on that for your retirement.
Yeah, it's like you think about the guy, do research, guys. When they created the 401k, I think it was 1978 or 1970. You have to think about, okay, let's think we use logic, right? So logic. So in 1913, the Federal Reserve was created, which is the book you need to read, Jekyll Island. Since in 1913, the dollar has completely collapsed. Okay. When bankers took over, what they did is they created what's called the American dream. They got us to borrow against ourselves in a 30-year mortgage, 70-month loans on our cars. So we borrow against our future selves. So productivity has gone like this. Our pay has stayed like this. Okay. So we don't make more money, but we work harder.
Yeah.
Then in 1971, they detached us from the gold standard. So think about sitting there. My CFO brought this up. Great, great, great man. He's like, this is why they created 401k. He said, basically, you're sitting there as a CFO and you're like looking futuristically. You're like, if we're going to pay people a pension, this dollar is collapsing. That is the worst investment in the world. So they created the 401k, and the creator of the 401k is quoted saying, I created a product that made Wall Street wealthier. Look it up. The creator of the 401k. So basically, what a 401k does, the company passes the risk on to you, and then you're putting money back into their stock. It's like it's everything we do in the financial system is a Ponzi scheme. It's like,
It's
holy,
crazy.
it's crazy. And so what I did is I started every time money hits my bank account, no matter if it's $10, $15, or $100,000. It's called opportunity cost of money. That thing is burning a hole in my bank account. It's got to move into crypto. It's got to go into max funding my policies. It's got to go to gold or silver. It's got to go somewhere. We just leave enough to transact in our accounts. And it's not a thing to say, go take your money out of the banks. It's not about that. I have a bank account. I use a bank. They have its purpose. But the more money you have sitting there, the more money they're making. They 100 times your money. So I think it's really important for people to understand fractional reserves.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that that's the thing that we got caught up in because of our education and because of the generations of education before. It said save and save and save and pay off everything. Whereas you're turning this on its head and saying use debt to create more money or create business or create real estate and get somebody else to pay it off. You have to start thinking like the wealthy, right? Like if you don't start thinking this way or start learning how they divvy up their assets, how they, operate businesses, how they play the tax system to work in their favor. If you don't start learning those things, you're going to be broke your whole life and then you're going to retire on whatever fixed plan that they have. They're already talking about a universal basic wage in Canada. They're already talking about CBDC coming in very, very quickly, and we don't have control over that. And so it's a matter of taking full responsibility and realizing you have to turn what you were taught on its head and start paying attention to what people that have created wealth are doing right now, or you're going to have the same situation that you have. And by the way, we've been through that too. We've made money, we've lost money, we've gone through those cycles. It's part of learning. And so many people get stuck on one mistake, right? Maybe they bought into crypto and the coin that they bought or whatever happened, it tanked, or the business went out because of regulation, the crazy regulations that are happening right now. And they're like, well, I don't have any faith in that. But what did you learn from that?
Yeah.
How can we move forward? So maybe can you speak to, like, because this whole crypto world and digital assets, that
Yeah.
is something brand new for people in the financial world, and it's not going away. Blockchain, crypto, none of that is going away, but it's learning how to utilize that to your advantage without being taken in the process. So maybe you can speak a little bit to that if you're brand new to it. Like, how
Yeah.
can people learn about those things?
Yes, 100%. You got to be very careful because the reason, so let's go into the narrative, right? So the reason let's go to 2017, Jamie Dimon, who's one of the largest bankers in the world, right? So Chase, JP Morgan. Then you have Larry Fink. So I'll use them for context because you can find tons of videos on this. BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world. So two people who basically control our government in America. They're the president and CEO of America, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever. So
Don't
basically,
worry about the election. These guys are the ones that run this show.
100%. So in 2017, they both said that cryptocurrency is used for money laundering. It's a fraud.
I remember.
At the exact same time that JP Morgan was creating JPM coin. They have their own blockchain, guys. They have their own cryptocurrency. The reason why he says Bitcoin is used for money laundering because he wants people to use his own currency, right? So just take out the word cryptocurrency and think of distributed ledger technology, on-demand liquidity. So if you were in a liquidity crisis and you had this new innovative technology that could literally fix the liquidity crisis, would you go with it? Absolutely. America's at 120% debt to income ratio. We have more debt in the system than we have money. We have a liquidity crisis. The bond market inverted last year, which is crazy. There is no money in the system. So my money is your debt is my money. So people
Yeah.
are not putting debt in the system. There is no money. When people conceptually understand, they're like, holy shit. So what cryptocurrency is and what they're fearing is that it is a way for us to go sovereign with our finances, but I
Yes.
don't think it's going to end up that way. They're going to take control of the system, and that's what you're experiencing. That's why it's so volatile. The reason why it's so volatile is because there is no regulation. The beautiful part about no regulation is you can make a lot of money in a short amount of time if you get rid of the greed gene, okay? Because it's going to go straight up. So there's going to be three things that are happening. Everybody needs to write this down if you're new. There's the Bitcoin ETF that's getting approved. That means the institutions are saying it's normalized. That's huge. That tells you regulation is coming. If the SEC approves a Bitcoin ETF, that means they believe in Bitcoin. If you go to the CFTC, Bitcoin is on their website as a commodity. So that's important. Next is a Bitcoin halving, which is in April. That reduces the amount of rewards miners can get, which actually is it makes it more scarce, right? So anything that becomes more scarce, what happens? The price goes up. Another thing, macroeconomically, you're going to see if Biden, or so the presidential election specifically is going to drop interest rates, right? And then if Trump comes in, he's going to lower interest rates like crazy. When they lower interest rates, our assets are going to go through the roof. So you're going to have a Bitcoin ETF get approved, which is going to normalize cryptocurrency. You're going to have a Bitcoin halving, which makes it parabolic. It's a 4-year cycle. So then you're going to have the interest rates go down and it's going to go straight up. Then you pull profits and you secure in things like real estate, business, insurance, all these things. Find something you're really good at and just double down. I'm really, really good at business. So I went all in business and I hired professionals in other areas, right? I'm not even a cryptocurrency expert. I have a team of cryptocurrency experts that I work with. So if you're new to crypto, what I would do is get rid of your follow, I would say follow my channel. Like I have a lot of great
Yeah, exactly. Follow him, okay? And like
we're,
actually start to educate yourself daily.
yeah, we're very honest and open about what we're doing. And it's like, stick with cryptocurrencies that you can measure. That's with any investment. The book Intelligent Investor, that was the one I was trying to get out. The book Intelligent Investor will teach you how Warren Buffett became wealthy at 12 years old. He read the book Intelligent Investor. He went from investing in stocks to investing in companies. So
Mhm.
that's what I do. When I invest in crypto, and that's why I talk about XRP a lot, and that's why I'm investing in Bitcoin, because now BlackRock says it's a flight to safety. So I started ramping up. I'm like, hey, you're not going to beat the asset managers, right? They're telling you that
Yeah.
Bitcoin is here to stay. I had a weird energy about. I could have got it a lot cheaper, but I don't ever go. I only go based on my feeling. I don't go based on anything else. I don't go based on FUD or somebody telling me. So things like XRP, I'm a huge fan of XRP, not financial advice, because I've shaken the CEO's hand. I've met the CFO. I've met David Schwartz, who's a CTO. It's a real company doing real things, real payment systems. XLM is Jed McKellop, who left. So my point behind this is make sure you can measure it. Make sure there's real board of directors. It's a real company,
Yeah.
right? And so now when you go into the things like Shiba, Dogecoin, which a lot of people got rich off that, it's funny money. It's just funny money. So know that you can get really rich, but once you start making money, get your money out of that as quick as possible. Those are not real world investments and they're not real world solves. So that's I guess just to say that. Make sure it has a real world solve. Why do you think the SEC and Ripple have been going at it for 3 years? Because they are the only one that has a true real world solve besides Bitcoin as
Yep.
a value. They got deemed a non-security. They're the only crypto with basically deemed non-security. So now what you're going to see is regulations going to come in. You're only going to have this next bull run, which is coming up very soon, with this type of volatility, which can make you small amount of money can make you a large amount of money. But again, what we're training people to do is like get the hell out of the markets, man. If you turn $1,000 into 10,000, get out. It's not going to go to 100.
It's like Vegas, walk away when you win big, right?
That's what I did. So this, and I'm speaking from experience, Christina. Like when I was in, so what everybody, and we created a company based on this because I was like, I need to teach people how to do this because basically 2020 to 20, I started training my brain inversion backwards. Like you said, you have to flip your brain. That's what Jesus was teaching. I can go into that too, but he was teaching inversion. He was flipping everything. Like in his mountain of the sermon, I always say the word wrong, my dyslexia, Sermon on the Mount, where he was flipping everything. Eye for an eye. No, let them slap you on one cheek. They tell you they take your coat or shirt, give them your jacket. He was flipping everything. He was going from village to village. He was bringing people together. He was, again, inverting everything like we're trying to do right now for people. So basically what happened in 2021 to 2022, it went parabolic on the back end of 2021, just like it's going to do in 2024. And everybody was like, we're going to be rich. And I said, guys, there's something going on here, dude.
Yeah.
We have to start pulling profits. So I started pulling profits, securing in my insurance. And that's what made me, there's difference between rich and wealthy. So it made me rich,
Yes.
right? Wealth is coming 2024 to wealth is where my kids will be rich. And that's another thing I'll recap in just a moment is about trust. It's very important to get yourself set up with a trust. So basically I exited the markets in May, everything just collapsed 85%. So then everybody's been in depression until now, but I pulled profits and I'm going to do it again. And so I pulled those profits. I kept buying back in and now I have a much larger portfolio. And as everybody's getting greedy, I'm going to pull out. So that's my only advice. You put in some money. There's nowhere in the world you're going to make 10 times on your money. It just
Right.
doesn't make sense, right? This is
Yeah.
it. It's fake internet money. It's like
Unless
casino.
you're a banker.
Unless right? Well, that's how you start to operate like the banks too. And then you want to do
Right.
it ethically and morally with good intentions. That's what.
Right.
But I do want to talk about trust a little bit, which is
Yes.
super important. It's important to understand the system is not rigged against you, it's rigged for you. If you really start to dive, like you said, tax codes, if you 401k is a tax code. Tax code 7702 is a tax code. Tax code 7702 was created in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created, ironically. that is the insurance tax code. Wealthy people insure their wealth, right? It doesn't have to be there's just wealthy people insure their wealth. They put insurance on their wealth and they buy assets that they can borrow against tax-free. Okay, so that's a key thing. You want to get into assets or into things that you can leverage tax-free to either retire with or to buy other assets. Really important, right? Or you're going to keep paying Uncle Sam. The next thing is understanding when you go into a wealth paradigm, you want to make sure you have a trust. Now, a trust allows you to step out of the ecosystem and be a beneficiary of that trust, and it protects your family. So there's many different trusts you can get. You want to seek a trust professional. But what I set up was it's called the waterfall system, the Rockefeller Trust. So my son, who's 8 years old, and my daughter, you brought up the family thing, right? My daughter, who's 19, will retire with $1.7 million by the time they're 62 without doing anything by setting up an insurance policy when they were young, right? And so that goes into the trust, though. That's the thing. So my family is all set up. So eventually, within the next probably 20 years, when I start to have grandkids, my grandkids at day 15 will get an insurance policy that's attached to the trust. So when my grandson or my son's son needs a car, he comes to the family bank. They borrow against our bank and we pay ourselves back. So we no longer have to deal with the bullshit indoctrination of people.
Amazing.
So then I know when I pass away, biblically, I set my kids, and you can also set up rules too. So people say, well, you don't want to just pass wealth on because, that's true. If you pass just wealth on, it usually gets disseminated because the foundation isn't there. When my trust, you got to believe in God with all your heart and love humanity as you love God. You have to treat others as you want to be treated, and you have to pull the log out of your eye before you pull the straw out of others. And we'll be able to we have measurements in there. We'll be able to tell if you're operating like that as a human being. If you are not, you're out of the trust. That's how I ensure when I die that
Amazing.
that the energy has been passed down. So I just hope that people can see through my story. And that's why I tell the story. People are like, well, he came on to talk about crypto. But I think my story is more important, that I was broke on my parents' couch in 2020. I mean, March 2020, I was sitting on my parents' couch like a broken little boy. But I went on a walk with my mom, and my mom and I was like, I need to become a man. Like, this is silly. Like this, I'm a broken little boy. So we went on this walk, and they live in a 1,000 square foot home, tougher neighborhood. They shouldn't be living in that neighborhood, all that stuff. All this abundance, everything's going to change very soon. So we're walking around. I looked her in the eyes, she has beautiful blue eyes. And I said, Mom, life will never be the same. I promise you. And she says, I believe you. So that's all you need is one person to believe in you. And we believe in you. I know you believe in your people. I believe in my people. And I believe that's what Jesus Christ, he was a hope dealer. He was a hopium dealer. That's why they
Yeah.
took him. They're like, this dude came back after whatever he studied for 18 years, came back and was like, no, this is crazy, man. It's happening right now, family. This is a Jesus timeline. There's a group of people like us who are awakening to a new higher level of consciousness that we can, we will, we must, we will never give up. We can do this ourselves. We can. And that's what they're afraid of. Whoever they are. I don't even know who they are, but there's
But we win.
yeah, we win. You win in the end. And that's when I run into men or women. And I upset people when I say this, when I meet them, like, I'm so fearful. I said, you told me you believe in God. And I look them in the eyes and I say, do you really believe in God? They say, yes. I said, then you should have zero fear.
Yeah,
Like, straight up,
absolutely.
you should have zero fear because the Bible and the God that I know, I win in the end. So therefore, every step I take is in faith and knowing that it's going to work out. So if I get hit by a car on the way out of here, it's part of the process. I don't know what it was for. Sometimes you just get hit by a car. There's not this divine thing. Oh, the angel had me get hit by a car.
Sure.
Sometimes you get hit by a car, but what's important is how I react to that. I got
And
hit
how
by,
you set up yourself, how you set up your whole life for your family, for your legacy, how
yeah,
thoughtful you've been. 3 years ago, you were broke, right? It
four,
takes
four,
one,
yeah,
four. Oh
yeah,
my gosh, it's 2024.
yeah.
4 years ago, right? And it takes one decision.
You're
It
right.
takes one person,
2020, yeah, 2020, 3 years.
right? Okay.
Like when
My math isn't great either, by the way. I'm a creative, so
I
we're on
was,
the same page there. But it takes one decision. It takes one person in your family's lineage to change absolutely everything and take responsibility and say, I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to create something different for the people that come after me. You have to be the one. You have to choose to be the one.
be the one. I love that. And it's not an easy path. It's not, because
No,
first they judge you, then they'll respect you, and then they'll start to ask questions and follow you.
that's
In
right.
the process, you said something powerful. It's not your job to prove to them that you're right. You are not
Nope.
their savior. You are
Nope.
not their savior. Jesus was never claimed to be our savior. He never did. We called him master. We called him Rabboni. He was just out doing his thing. He would leave for days and meditate, come back and teach, and got people to believe in themselves. He's like, I'm out. He'd bounce and he'd come back. He had a tax accountant walking around with him. The guy was not poor. He was a very wealthy man. very, very wealthy man, and he is the risen king. And I know I go back to that because that's where my wealth came from, 100%. So
You are a gift. You are a gift, John. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing your amazing energy with us today, for sharing your areas of expertise, for being hope in this world and telling people that maybe are not feeling that way right now to have faith, to continue down that path, to continue taking responsibility. And I'm so grateful for this time with you today. If you guys are not following him, go follow him. You will learn so much. And it starts in little bits and pieces. If you didn't understand everything that was said today, that's okay. You'll start learning little bits and pieces, and it'll move you forward, and it'll all start to come together and make sense. But I appreciate you so much. Thank you very, very much for being here today.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here for another episode of Freedom Motivated. My name is Christina Whiteley, and we'll see you again next week. Bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of Freedom Motivated with your host, me, Christina Whiteley. We hope that the stories we've shared today have sparked a fire within you and ignited your passion for living life on your terms. Remember, true freedom lies in the choices we make and the actions we take. So go out there and embrace your journey. Take the leap of faith, believe in yourself, and never settle for less than what you deserve. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the Freedom Motivated podcast and never miss out on our upcoming interviews with more incredible entrepreneurs and freedom leaders. Be bold, be brave, be disruptive. You are capable of things far beyond your wildest dreams if you just have the courage to go for it. Thank you for being a part of this incredible community. Until next time, may you always be driven by the desire for freedom and motivated to make your dreams a reality.